Holden fans, this is our first major snow event for the year, and it's dropped about, maybe 8 inches on us, and it's still snowing. So we will clear that later with the snowblower, which is always a fun time because it involves gasoline and engines and throwing snow 10 feet in the air. It's fun. Roads are open. But we don't plan to go anywhere because we've got a heated garage and we're going to do some wiring on the HZ today. Hopefully get it finished.
Australia, what's your favourite sport?
Football.
Snake?
Pies.
Animal?
Kangaroos.
And what's your favourite car, Australia?
Holden.
Let me see, that's football, meat pies, kangaroos and Holden cars, huh?
Right.
Well, you sure sound like Australia to me.
We are.
I love baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevy.
Welcome to part 2. It's been a year in the making. Thank you to all 75 of my subscribers. Friends and family, mostly. Let's check out some progress that's been made in 12 months. Not much. What you got to understand about living in Michigan is you get very few good weather months, and you tend to want to spend them outside. So when winter comes around, we retreat to our heated sheds, and that's when the real work gets done, because there's no racing, there's no kids events and travel, whatever else. So quite a bit has happened since part 1, as you can probably see. Engine is in. It does run. There's been probably 5 days worth of wiring on this guy, including going into the engine harness and eliminating the EGR, the rear O2 sensors, the EVAP system, and having the computer tuned by lt1swap.com. Thank you very much. Shout out to I think Brandon, his name. Does a great job. $75. Will eliminate all the codes for those systems that you don't need to run in an older car. So wiring. What can I say? This is my distribution panel. It's actually out of a VW Beetle, but they make really nice little PDUs. So positive 12 volts comes in here. I have relays for start, fuel pump, the main relay to turn everything on. I have a relay for the brake switch because this is an automatic. It requires 12 volts to one of the computer pins unless you put your foot on the brake, and then that shuts the 12 volts off. So that's the complete opposite of what to expect when a normal brake switch applies 12 volts when you put the brake on. In this case, you need to have 12 volts on unless the brake pedal is pressed, at which point it turns off the 12 volts. So you need a relay for that. Fan relay is not on this panel. It's going to come over here. Computer is mounted. All the wiring is in. The fuel system is in. You'll notice that this is not a truck intake. The truck intake sits about this high, and there's no way it would fit under the hood bonnet. We have the factory harness here that I'm going to need to tap into for the main power to the car and the start and ignition circuits. That's what's going to happen to. Alright, first fun wiring job for the day. I'm going to bypass the neutral safety switch in the car because the transmission has a neutral safety switch on it directly on the transmission, and this one is, see, I've got it unplugged there. There's the white plug that, I don't know if you can see the actual switch. It's a little bit dodgy. It only works occasionally. You got to jiggle the shifter into park to get it to connect, and I'm just going to bypass it. I'm going to make up a little harness and short that plug. Yes, my vise isn't bolted down. I I had it on the wrong end of the table, so I unscrewed it and I haven't got to bolting it back down yet. I'm going to use these crappy connectors, but I don't like to use the plastic insulators, so I'm going to pull them off and then just shrink wrap them like that. And when I come back, I'll have a shrink wrapped harness. Nice strippers. Crimpers. I use this one here with the prong that goes in. When you stick the connectors in, make sure the seam points away from the prong, like that. And yes, there's the eternal argument or discussion, crimp or solder, crimp or solder. I used to be a crimp and solder guy, but on this project I've just been crimping, and it goes a lot faster, and honestly it doesn't seem to have any impact on the strength or longevity of the joints. And I've also been told that soldering makes the wire brittle. Look, if I was to run solder in there, that wire would become very brittle rather than being nice and supple like it is now. We'll get some shrink wrap tubing over that because this will be energized and we don't want it shorting against the body when you're cranking the engine. Get a bit of angle on that. See if we go. That's as far as we can go with that. And then we need our little heat source. Now weed is legal in Michigan. I can use this to light my bong. Come on, shrink. There we go. Alright, now the other side. Could use a little more. Probably too much. What the hell? More is better. Oh, also don't forget to put your shrink wrap tubing on first. You will regret it. Seam away from the prong. Squeeze that puppy down. Ah! There we go. And shrink wrap that guy. Where's my bong lighter? There it is. That's going to fit into that plastic plug like that. And then we'll just tape it up. Okay, so on the Holden engine wiring harness, the purple wire is the start wire. I got my voltmeter hooked up to it. Now we've got the bypass in place. Let's see if this thing works. Look at that, key on. Yeah. never wire your starter without a neutral safety switch, right, Bill? You know what I'm talking about. All right, 1 hour has passed. What have I done? Well, wiring takes time. So up here, there's a connector, a 4-prong weather pack connector that connects the main power to the chassis, the key on to the main relay, the starter, and the fuel pump. And in theory, no, that should be all it needs to run. It even turned off on the key. Well, if that doesn't get your blood pumping, talk about motivation to finish everything else now. So what's left to do? Cooling system, throttle linkage, shifter linkage, the OBD connection, the serial connection to the OBD port. Still got the interior gauges and a little bit of wiring to do in there. Got new seats going in. She starts on the key. Hey, look at that. And runs. Don't believe me? Let's do it again. Wiring is boring, wiring is tedious, doesn't make you go faster, nobody looks at it and goes, ooh, nice wiring. But I've seen more cars stranded or didn't finish races because of wiring problems than I can count. And I've almost burnt a couple of cars down myself from shorts. So I tend to spend a bit of time on wiring. Plus, it's nice having all these connectors, because when I go to pull the engine out, which of course is going to happen at some point, everything will just unplug. Nothing is soldered in or wired in permanently. This whole engine harness will just unplug and lift out with the harness on the engine. It's amazing how many newer engines, the wiring harness doesn't do that. It's wired into the car, and you have to take the wiring harness off the engine in order to get the engine out. You weren't thinking. There you go. So now we should have a signal to our OBD port, and we should have a brake switch. Ooh, OBD link, Bluetooth connection for your OBD. All right, finally got the Talk app talking to the Bluetooth OBD link, which is connected to the serial port, which is now connected to the computer. And we're seeing data here, throttle 0.4, vacuum 1, nothing's running. So if I turn this on, if I start the engine, we should see some data. Revs, vacuum, 20, vacuum, good. this is going to be my dashboard. I'm not hooking up the speedometer, I'm not hooking up any of the factory gauges. As I said earlier about the mechanical oil pressure gauge, because in this particular engine the oil pressure is not connected to the computer, it's a separate gauge. Everything else is going to be on the little Nook tablet here, and that's going to be mounted to the dashboard, and that will give me my speed, my revs, my coolant temp. Pretty much anything you can get out of the computer you can program on this. This thing was free because my wife got a free Nook from Amazon. The OBD Bluetooth connection was $50 from Amazon, and there's a digital dash for $50. What's not to love?